Caregiving is it's a necessity, and it's going to become an even greater necessity because we have simply less young people to take care of all of us baby boomers and getting older. There's just the generation under us, there's just not as many. So caregiving is a necessity, but taking care of ourselves is a must. We have to do that.
Meet Kari Berit, speaker, author, and caregiving expert in Salem November 12th and 13th as part of Salem Health's Community Health Impact Speaker Series. She has spent her career raising awareness of the challenges and dynamics of family caregiving, especially between adults and aging parents. She talked with us at length at Salem Health, mincing no words about taking care of a loved one and yourself as a caregiver. Hello, welcome to another InSight OnSite. And today we are at the Community Health Education Center at Salem Health to talk with Kari Berit. She is the author of The Unexpected Caregiver, and our topic today is what else? Caregiving for an adult over the age of 50. And she is the first to say not everybody wants to talk about this, but we should, and the earlier the better.
No one wants to prepare to be a caregiver, and there are several reasons why that is. When I first started my work in aging 35, 40 years ago, what I realized is that aging was seen as ugly. Something we want to avoid. Don't want to do that. You know, I was telling the audience this morning that I just have heard now recently that there's a cream that I'm supposed to use on my neck to get rid of the age in my neck, and it's not the same cream that I have on my face. It's a different cream because your neck really can show how old you are. Oh my gosh, we spend so much time trying to hide from and avoid aging. So to me, it's no surprise that when it comes to giving care to someone that's older, we don't know what we're doing because no one talks about what happens when we age normally. I'm not talking about aging with a disease that causes dementia, but normal aging. What is it? How do we slow down? What care do we maybe need just for normal support, right? And then you get into dementia, and that's a whole different level of caregiving. So we don't talk about these things as a society. We try to run from aging, hide aging. Aging's ugly. So then when, for example, our parents get older, what, are they all of a sudden ugly? Do we not want to touch them? And it becomes difficult for the caregiver, the adult child, to embrace this job called taking care of my mom or dad. And we tend to want to take over for our parents because we also see aging as that our parents become stupid. Just like teenagers, when we were teenagers, we thought our parents were dumb. Now they get older, and now we think they're dumb because they're older and old people are dumb. All these messages, wrong messages that we have, it makes it clear to me why we don't talk about giving care to our aging loved ones.
And just how many Americans are taking care of an aging loved one?
Currently, I've read two statistics. I've often said it's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 Americans are taking care of someone over the age of 50. Now, I've just read recently that they've moved that to 1 in 4, but I haven't done my research to verify that, but I know it's 1 in 5. And it's not just that, it's that historically what we've seen is that those family caregivers spend just as much time and money as professional caregivers giving that care. It's a huge impact on us personally to take care of someone.
Kari draws on her own experience growing up when she became a caregiver.
It really started years ago when I was growing up and my mother was an alcoholic. And that's a different type of caregiving in that I, as a teenager coming home from school, I tried to manage the household. You know, if I was having a girlfriend over, oh, I had to manage where mom was or where the empty glass was, or and then I felt I'm second child. I acted like the first child, but I'm second child. So that was my introduction to caregiving. And then she became ill with Huntington's. So I actually supported my father more. But my mother learning about, wow, this is a caregiving situation. And I'll never forget when we decided she was at the end of her life. And my dad was so stressed he went in the emergency room. And he came out from the emergency room, and we had hospice come in. And the hospice worker said, you know, Dwight, obviously, that was my dad's name, Dwight, this is really stressful on you, so you need to relinquish some of the heavy caregiving. For example, and then the hospice nurse looked at my mom and said, when do you take a bath or shower? And she says, I take a bath every night at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. And the hospice person said, well, we're going to have to change that up if we're going to help you. No, she said, no, Dwight does that. And she was very stubborn about her bathing and wanted only to take a bath every night at 10 o'clock with Dad's help. She was so stubborn, she died the next day. And I always lightly joke about that because my mother was stubborn. But we get into those places where no, this is how it's done. And that's half the struggle with when you're the caregiver, is to realize that you're balancing between the comfort of that person to whom you're giving care and the fact that they want to maintain their habits and their routines, and realizing that you need to ask for help and disrupt some of those habits and routines. And there's going to be some conflict, and you're going to need to get some help and ask for help in that.
I asked if this is where family dynamics come into play.
Yes, that and when your siblings get in the mix. Because I have coached many families and walked with many families through this process, and it can be disruptive, to say the least, because certain people think, yes, mom should stay alive at all costs. Other siblings say, absolutely not. Let mom die when she wants to die. Well, she can't make a decision. Yes, she can. She said it earlier. So that's why it's good to have these conversations earlier. And generally, you do appoint one person, as a parent, to be your main care agent, care person, and that provides conflict. I was the favorite child. And I say that lightly, but I was the child that took the reins and organized, and that was my role. But at my dad's funeral, I said jokingly to the people that were gathered, you may all think that I was Dad's favorite. I was my parents' favorite, but that's not true, because my dad had unique and beautiful relationships with his 4 kids. And so did my mom. It's just that as siblings, you play different roles. And my role was that organizer. And I had the contacts, and this was my wheelhouse. I did have to learn to let go and let my siblings do some of those things too, even though they didn't do it right or the way I would do it. So what?
Caregiving ends in death. Is there a way to make it a good one?
A good death?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there is. I love hospice, palliative care, hospice at the end. I think they do marvelous work. Some states are right to die states. I think that can be a godsend for people who are struggling with diseases. Very hard for family, though. A lot of families, my sister and I would say, if I get so-and-so, take me out in the back and shoot me. And no one's going to do that. But even having to make that choice for someone else has got to be extremely difficult. But you can, if we look at, just like I said, aging was part of life, So is death. And if we can look at that death is part of our journey here, and if we can find ways to say goodbye. At the end of my father's life, he died in 23, summer of 23. He brought so many of us together, and he brought my brother and his son together who had been estranged. So the death brought a lot of us to a forgiveness place, a place of forgiveness where we could look at each other in a different light. And when I watched and I was a part of my brother and his son and me embracing each other and crying, and then turning around and looking at my dad who lost his ability to speak and saying, you did this. Your end-of-life journey made this healing possible. The book came about because I used to run assisted living dementia care communities. And I would have all these family members whose loved ones lived with us. They'd come in and they'd say, keep mom or dad busy, keep them busy so they don't call us. And I thought, okay, well, what do they like to do? And they'd list off all these things that they'd like to do. And then I'd go talk to their mom or dad, and they'd say, I don't like to do those things. And I had this one woman that just looked at me and said, I'm just going to sit in my apartment and my joy is going to be reading my books. And I said, that's absolutely wonderful. I'll come and visit you every once in a while. So when I saw that this was happening in assisted living, I realized that family caregivers could benefit from the same wisdom and stories that I was gathering and learning about in my professional work. So in the book, in the original book I wrote, I wanted to help family caregivers understand aging better, understand family dynamics better, and understand how they can engage with their loved ones better. That it's not about keeping mom or dad busy, but it's about how to engage mom and dad, what brings them joy. What happened then was in the new edition of the book, I added a crucial element, which I call my S.A.N.E method, because so many caregivers have said to me, I feel insane. I said, well, let's get you sane. And S.A.N.E stands for supported, appreciated, not guilty, and energized. So in the book, I walk people through how you can kind of check in with yourself. And I used that with my dad at the end of his life. I used my S.A.N.E method. Every day I would go back and say, okay, am I being supported? Who do I need to call that I can call and just let all my feelings go? And that person's not going to judge me. They're not going to tell me how to feel. They're not going to tell me what to do. How do I feel appreciated? In other words, knowing that I'm doing enough, knowing that I'm doing all this care out of kindness and love, knowing that my relationship with my dad is intact and we have no regrets. Not guilty. Not guilty for, oh, shoot, should we have thought of maybe getting another test? Should we have thought about, no, we've done enough. We've done enough, and it's okay. When I feel supported, appreciated, not guilty, I have a lot more energy to engage with other people, to go do something that I love to do, which is exercise, to dance to music in my kitchen, to go out with my friends and have fun. So I felt that that piece of self-care was much needed, because compassion fatigue is something that is real when we care so much for someone else that we neglect self-care.
And caregiving does have some challenges.
Well, okay, two of the difficult ones. Religion, because it is common, it can happen that at the end of your parents' life, even though they've been like my mother, Lutheran throughout her whole life, there was no question. But my dad, his political views shifted. He switched and joined the church of his second wife. Things switched. That's okay. That's okay. I've had another woman that I worked with They were filling out the form, and on the form of assisted living, you have to put, what's your religious preferences. She put all. And her son was like, you can't put all. You were a Methodist, put Methodist down. She goes, no, all. Because she said, because I think they all have something to offer. So that's a switch that can happen. That can happen. The other thing that is really difficult for adult children is sex. And that their loved ones, yep, they still do that. And I know that because when my dad remarried, I will never forget, we shared a house together. He came out of his bedroom one morning, he said, "Good morning." And I'm like, oh, boy. But, and the complicated piece there is that if there is a disease that causes dementia, and dementia is not something that happens to all of us, and it's not a disease in and of itself. You have to have a disease that causes this. But if someone has a disease that's causing dementia and they live in an assisted living or a dementia care, memory care community, it is not uncommon that they pair up with someone else. They're not the age they were in their minds, in their reality. So they might pair up with someone else. And it's very hard for the adult children to come in and see mom cuddling up next to Henry. That's not her dad. Who is this guy? But instead, ask mom who Henry is. Talk to her about Henry. Who is this guy? What do you like about him? What's special about him? And it doesn't matter what the answers are. What matters is that she's happy and there's joy in this relationship.
Do parents wish their children wanted to know them?
That's a good question, and I think that really varies with families. I think it varies quite a bit with families because my mother died young, and I knew some of her background and why her journey led to where it did. And I'm much softer on her now. She's been gone since 2002. I have a much softer heart for her now because of understanding some of her background, because I asked her mother, who lived longer, or who lived in a different way. So I asked questions of my father about my mother. I read some of my mom's journals, which gave me some insight into my mom's life. But I don't know if I would have had I don't know if maturity is the right word, level to have asked some of these questions earlier about my mom. But I've certainly, like I said, a softer heart for her now.
And what does a rewarding caregiving experience look like for both caregiver and receiver?
I love that word, rewarding, yes. First of all, it's to be quiet. In other words, ask questions and let them share with you. Let them share. It's true that as we get older, and if we're out of the workforce and we're not, it's almost sometimes like we want to scream and say, but I used to do that. I have actually done that. I've experienced that. And we hear the same stories from our parents. It can be, I heard the same story from my dad over and over and over again. But I just said, you know what, that's fine. I'm going to hear it, and this time I'm going to listen for something I didn't know. Or I'm going to ask another probing question to learn another part of that story. So ask questions. It's about, recognize that when you're with them, sometimes it's about them and hearing about their journey. So that's a big one, is to listen. If there's someone with dementia, if there's someone who has disease with dementia, it's definitely to get into their reality. If they say they're waiting to pick up the kids from school, and you know that that is absolutely not true, because I'm her kid and I'm already grown, so how can that be? But she doesn't recognize me. Ask her, what did you do with your kids after school? Was it good that when they came home after school, did you ask them about to engage them in that way? It's really hard. But what happens when you do that is that there's this lightness and grace that comes because you're not trying to correct them and help them see it either your way or your reality, because if they have a disease that causes dementia, they're not in your reality. So be with them where they are. And it can be a huge gift to you to let go. I said after 9/11, when all that happened and everybody was so stressed out, I said, go visit a dementia community. 9/11 didn't happen there. They can't process that. So give yourself a break and be with them where they are at in their age and learn from them. There's a buzzword out in the industry called person-centered care, and that has to do with really getting to know the person that you're caring for, and it's kind of like caring for them how they would want to be cared for, right? So there is, in that symbiotic relationship, a good caregiver, care receiver is that person-centered, that you are being in the here and now. And that it's not always about the medical, it's not always about the legal issues or the financial issues, that you are finding time to do some of the things that I talk about in my book. You're finding time to play. You're finding time to watch silly movies together. You're finding time to color together. You're finding time to go on walks, sit and pet animals. You're taking out some of the stresses that are part of caregiving, when you have to call the insurance agency and try to figure out this or that or organize their meds. And you're almost, you know how kids would come into a room and they plop on the ground? It's that. They're there. They're here and now. So it's getting to that sometimes with your caregivers, knowing that you're going to have to do the other things too. I'm not saying that you obviously have to do the other things too, but it's taking those moments where you can both just be in the here and now and enjoy. I told this story this morning, and that is when I'd go to my grandma's house, one of my grandmas, and she was always, oh, when are you going to come next? How long are you going to stay? And I would get very, very defensive. And I think we get defensive because I wanted to say to Grandma, I have an important life. Well, that's ego. That's ego talking. She doesn't care about that. She wants my time. She wants my time. She wants to be with me. She's lonely. She's sad. She hurts. And I'm trying to fix it. No. I'm going to first recognize the sad, the lonely, and the hurt. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to put some music on the Wi-Fi. She had the record album in the old console, and we'd put Benny Goodman on, and she would start to tell me stories about when she and Grandpa would take the overnight train from Minneapolis to Chicago, dance all night, take the train back, go to work on Monday. That was lovely. And so when you ask about those joyful pieces, see, those are the joyful pieces, but I have to get rid of my ego. I have to get rid of my feeling that my time is so valuable, and how can I just be sitting here with you? Being and sitting here with you that's where the magic of caregiving comes. Exactly. Yes, she also hid the fact that she was married so she could keep working at the bank, because women couldn't be married and working at the bank. I was like, wow, holy moly, that's cool. If we can continue to find ways to support ourselves so that we feel that we can continue doing this and doing it out of kindness. That's the other thing. I think kindness is a key word, especially today, is that we love and we caregive out of kindness, not just kindness to the other person, but kindness to ourselves too.
And how do caregivers and event goers follow up on these community impact speaking events for more support, resources, and help? Jill Munger, Salem Health Foundation Director of Development, joined us for answers to this and more.
Salem Health Foundation was established in 1968 by a group of individuals who wanted to come alongside and provide extra support to the local hospital, which was Salem Hospital. And so since then, over the past 53 years, we've grown at the same rate as Salem Health hospitals and clinics. And so now our role is aligned at the mission of Salem Health, which is to improve the health care of the community. And so as healthcare in our region with Salem Health has advanced and is now serving over 500,000 people, so has the mission of the Salem Health Foundation. We're in our third year of these series. Wonderful impact, really great, enlightening, very helpful subjects and great types of information, takeaways always. People are always super energized. They ask wonderful questions. We always open it up for Q&A, and our audiences are really engaged and ask very, very thoughtful questions and are very, very interested. It's very heartfelt when you attend one of these events. People really care about the subject matter. It's things that people are experiencing and they may not be talking about openly to others. And so it's almost like these become like this huge support group at some point because everyone's kind of either in it or they're having a piece of the subject matter or potentially could be experiencing something. Kari Berit did a phenomenal job, and it was so touching. There were, during Q&A, there were individuals that, were really opening up about the experiences that they're going through. And, a lot of times we suppress these and we think they're unique to us. But when we're in an environment like that, we realize that we really are amongst others who, we may not know them, but they are experiencing the same things that we're going through. And it's very cathartic to understand that, that there are others that are going through the same kind of steps that we are at that time. I'm very excited about the long-term capacity of this. Our intention is to do these twice annually each year, something in the fall and something in the spring. And we've kind of established a couple of pillars, if you will. So one is obviously on aging, elder care. And then our next one that we're really interested in pursuing is topics and subjects relating to women's health issues. So that's going to be the next iteration that we're going to look at. And then I'm not sure where the third pillar will be, but, we get a lot of feedback from the community. We try to assess and really stay true to, hearing. We talk to our providers that we're fortunate enough to have relationships with, our frontline healthcare workers, and then obviously our community members who are bringing us ideas of, hey, I would really appreciate learning more about this particular health topic. The best thing to do is to go to the Salem Health Foundation website, and it's www.salemhealthfoundation.org. And all the time we have everything listed as far as like what are the upcoming events, what are the upcoming lectures. Probably the best kept secret with Salem Health is our Community Health Education Center. And so they come alongside and they're the ongoing, on the ground, 365 programming that happens. And so they're always a part of this. And so we may bring in a speaker, but then they're the ones that connect with the community that can bring, additional resources to light or connect people with resources such as support groups, etc. And so it really is a very holistic approach that we take. It's all free. We never charge a fee. We just really want to engage with our community and really help as much as we can.
Thank you for joining us today on an episode of InSight OnSite. I'm Wendy Brokaw.